Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they had to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm really glad that you could join me today. And if you're listening to this show on Podomatic, of course, you can come to iTunes. You can look for Women Entrepreneurs Radio or go to womenentrepreneursecrets.com. And under the radio tab on the menu, you can find links to listen on and subscribe on iTunes and also on Libsyn. Moving archive shows from Blog Talk Radio onto Libsyn, just a few every month. So yes, it's been over 400 episodes, but they're not all going to be there when you go to Libsyn. So little by little, I'll be moving featured episodes from the archive to Libsyn. So I hope that you will check that out and you can subscribe there. And every month there'll be a few more episodes. And also I just added a show to SoundCloud if you're on there. So there's a link also on the blog. If you're on there already, you may want to, it's another way for you to check it out. So there's different ways for you to listen to the show. And also, if you're on iTunes, you can go there and leave a review. That'd be great if you enjoyed the show. So we're going to get started with my guest, Leah Oviedo. And she's a writer, artist, self-defense instructor, and urban farmer. After healing from a long depression, she became certified in mental health first aid and is intent on decimating the stigma of depression. She hosts weekly depression support groups, creative expression, and uses social media to reach out to those who are suffering from mental illness. She recently published a book about her experiences with depression, and it's called D.I.Y. Therapy, Healing Depression. And I've known Leah for a long time online. We haven't met. I'm really glad to finally have her on the show. So welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio, Leah.
Thank you, Deb. It's great to be here.
I'm really excited for you to be on because, I heard about your good news and being able to work through depression and write the book. I thought that would be a terrific topic for a show because I think it's something that really doesn't get discussed enough, or people don't really understand it, and they have some kind of idea of what they think it's about. And I thought this would be a good conversation, and also because I think it also can tie into entrepreneurship because, human beings, we go through a lot, and real life is going on, and whether you are having challenges because of your business or because of what's happening in your life, and I can certainly attest to that, this is something that affects everyone. We can all benefit from really talking about. So, Leah, maybe we could start off a little bit talking about how you feel depression affects women's lives.
Yeah, what I learned in mental health first aid training is about 1 in every 8 women can expect to develop clinical depression during their lifetime, and that's a really big number.
Uh-huh.
I know it's been in my family. There's definitely been cases of depression. Some of the reasons that women don't look for help is embarrassment or shame, or they're just in denial about it. But it can really cause physical health problems. So depression can range from mild to severe. So maybe you have anxiety or stress, and that might grow into fatigue, insomnia, not sleeping, and you could gain a lot of weight, lose a lot of weight. Depression is known to be a trigger for eating disorders. So it can really cause a lot of stress in all aspects of our life and put strains on relationships, and that is particularly strong for women who are generally caregivers. So if you're working and you're caregiving at home, then you might have double stress causing depression to worsen. In extreme cases, depression can even cause psychosis and severe mental health issues like schizophrenia. At the very worst, it can catapult someone into choosing suicide as an option. So it definitely can affect people at work. It affects your ability to focus. You might be calling in late for meetings or not showing up at all. I know for myself, when I was really deep in depression, I would end up not showing up for work, and I would be too embarrassed to call in and say why. But it caused a lot of stress, and I started talking to other people after I started seeking help and realized that, I'm not alone in this, that other people, especially women that I've talked to, have said similar things, like they couldn't focus because they were so sad, so depressed, and it stops them from being promoted, from, going for promotions, because sometimes depression can manifest as low self-esteem. And in that case, you don't think you're good enough. So what's the point? You just kind of lose hope. And so it's definitely a problem. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, especially if you spend a lot of time alone, working at your house, you're not working, going every day and having that water cooler conversation, that time to just kind of take a break from work and talk about other things, that it can be hard. I know for me, that's, as a writer and an artist, I've definitely dealt with that as far as feeling kind of lonely.
Yes.
So it's definitely important to recognize these things when we're working.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because a lot of times people are on their own and then they don't really have other people they're connecting with. And if you're going through it and you have the pressure of doing a business and trying to support yourself or family, and then things aren't working, and then you're beating yourself up, and then also women a lot of times taking on the extra role, as you're saying, is caregiver, caretaker, and then also just kind of taking in all these emotions can be really, add all that together, and it can be something that's really pressing down on someone.
Yeah.
I think that's can be a big problem that a lot of times people may not want to talk about. There's such a stigma, as you were saying, about mental illness, about what that means, and it's so stereotypical. I was reading something on Twitter, a mental health professional was talking about how people will say, well, this behavior is bad, or this person's bad, and she said it's not really how you need to look at it, that the person's behavior may stem from an issue, and we're defining it as good or bad, but it's really a pathology or whatever the right term is. It's not that simple as saying this is good or bad.
Definitely.
But we're determined, in our culture, we kind of look at it as, well, that's a bad behavior and blah, 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 and then not really thinking about, well, what does that mean exactly, and how are we defining that? Did you, you wrote this book about it. Did you have any kind of hesitancy about putting all that out there?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The book was a couple years of thinking and saying, well, maybe I can make it really impersonal and not share my own experiences, or at least not share the deep ones. But especially after doing the mental health first aid training, I realized just the conversation, like you said, we don't talk about it enough. So depression is something that I decided that, I spent 17 years silently suffering, and because of the stigma, I didn't want to be the downer, the loser, because that's what we say to people. We define them as good or bad based on their actions without knowing why. So it definitely stopped me from writing it in the beginning, but it just felt like the right thing to do as far as what I needed, and it was very therapeutic. Sometimes I was crying while I was writing the book because I was remembering things that I'd been through and feelings that had come up during those times. So it was a little hard, but in the end, it was very therapeutic to complete the book, and sharing it. I received so much praise for it. People are like, this is really helping me think more about my actions and making me think about, a family member or a friend that has depression. So that makes me feel really, really good inside.
Yeah, because you see it makes a difference in people's lives that they can read something that helps them to understand what they're going through.
Yeah. There's treatment options out there. There are ways to get help. There's therapy. There's support groups. There's online support groups. There's resources. You can read books and take classes, and there's definitely support out there.
So what do you think as far as how mental health can affect our careers, our professional lives?
Well, it definitely, like I said, it stops us from going for promotions. It stops us from putting in as much as we can into our work. For me, when I was depressed, I had a lot of spaces in between my work history. I would just go from one job to the next because I felt so hopeless. So I was just like floating, just waiting for something to happen. So for me, in my experience, it's just been very hard, or it was very hard to keep a job for more than 6 months because I would just get so depressed and I didn't feel like I had any hope. But now I know that I have a right to legally I can call out sick for depression, and you don't have to tell your employer the reason why. A lot of states, especially in California, you have to give at least 2 paid sick days now. So I encourage people, if you have sick day options at work, to call in, and you don't have to tell them, it's because I'm having a depression episode. You just have to tell them I'm sick and I can't come to work.
Right.
Or even call in late and be like, hey, I'm really not feeling good, but I'm still going to come in, but I just need a couple hours to get better. And then we can take breaks at work. I will often, on my break time, I'll walk around the building and I'll do breathing exercises. Sometimes if I don't feel like walking, I'll sit down, and I brought coloring pages and crayons to work, and I put them in the break room and I color. So there are ways we can kind of help ourselves stay focused at work. And that is by taking these breaks and taking self-care time. So meditation, coloring. Also, there's a lot of studies. I know the Johns Hopkins University has found that the irritation in your gut can send signals to your brain and vice versa, making us feel physically sick, which can increase depression. So bringing healthy snacks to work, not just going to the vending machine and getting chips and cookies. So there are things that we can do at work to help us stay focused and to keep the depression at bay. But on top of that, it's just it is a commitment to seeking help and to saying, okay, I am dealing with depression, but I'm not going to let it destroy my career. I'm going to get help for it, and I'm going to take actions at work to help me stay focused. I think that's what's really the smallest thing that anybody can do, is just commit to themselves that they're not going to let depression destroy their career.
Well, that's very good advice. And also add that when I was at AT&T and I was a programmer there for several years, what commitment they had was having on-site fitness centers. And they have that in part because it was a way for people to kind of feel better, not just for the physical movement, but what that meant to your state of mind also. So it was really encouraged that people would use the fitness center, and it was encouraged that if you went, during lunch, or if you took a break to go, you were looked to that, you're going to manage your work, but it wasn't looked at as a negative thing if employees went to the fitness center and took that time to do the physical exercises. They had teachers come in and do classes and some classes in mental, emotional kind of things, and nutrition. Because at least at the time, I don't know if they do anything like that now, but at the time they really wanted to emphasize that people were in a more positive frame of mind. So you wouldn't have people, I guess, snapping and doing things that might be pretty bad. So they have they have that knowledge that was important to really encourage that. Was really pretty, I don't know, maybe pretty progressive, because then later, as I went to other companies, I kind of found that, they may have had a fitness center off-site depending where you were, but they didn't always look at you as a whole person. If you were there doing the work and sitting at your desk all day, they didn't really care about. It was, you're sitting at the desk all day and we're driving you, 7 days a week. So what? No, they weren't looking at the whole person. And I say all this to say, because people can be detached from their own health and your own mental and emotional health, because it's like, well, you get so focused on getting this work done, and then, when it's time to lay people off, that doesn't help you, but that's another topic altogether. But I knew another coworker who had been there for several years, and then she finally ended up getting laid off, which was a good thing for her, actually. But she was under so much stress, she was passing out. She passed out on the subway because she was stressed out. And they laid her off, and then she went on and she did what she probably always wanted to do. She became a gym teacher. And her whole life changed. And I heard from her later, and she was in such a different place, emotionally, mentally, and physically. When we show up at work or show up in our professional lives, you're still a whole person. You're not just that person turning out widgets or that person sitting behind a computer creating a business. You're a whole human being.
And a thing with depression is it tends to create passiveness. So maybe you don't stand up and say, hey, I can't work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, or it creates passive aggressiveness where you end up going to work and hating your boss or your coworkers or your job. Depression can just make everything that's already hard just so much harder. So it becomes overwhelming. And that's the big thing in careers is when you're depressed, you're not thinking right. The simplest way to say it is you're just not thinking right anymore. So, that's great that fitness centers are popping up and businesses are encouraging healthier snacks and foods. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's important. It's important for people and also for people to take charge of their health as well. But, what are some tools did you have for healing from depression?
I found that creative expression, doing things, this isn't rocket science either. This is simple, things that anybody can do, and that includes creative expression such as coloring, like I mentioned earlier, taking a coloring book to work, at home and making collages or painting, drawing in a sketchbook. Journaling is a big thing. Just writing down how you're feeling. It does a couple different things that it makes your brain work differently because you're doing something, instead of just complaining in your head, you're writing it down on paper. But it also gives you a chance to look at what you wrote and see like, oh, wow, I can't believe I wrote this. Sometimes I'll be journaling and I'll just be writing and I'm so upset, I'll just write everything I'm feeling. And then when I'm done writing, I feel a little bit of a sense of relief because I got it all out. But then when I reread it, I'll look at things and I didn't realize, how much anger I was holding towards something or how much something annoyed me. Like it was there, I was conscious of it, but it was such a small part of everything else that I wasn't really focusing on it. And then when you write it down, you're able to see, oh, okay, this is actually really serious. I need to take care of this. On the other hand, you might say, oh, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like I wrote this down and I can tell right now that this is not logical. I don't need to feel this way or I shouldn't be reacting this way. And that's the easiest one because then you can just say, okay, I'm going to work on stop doing that. When something's really aggravating you, then of course you have to work a little harder, taking steps to understand what that is, what the root is, and how you can fix it. So I definitely like journaling. There's different ways you can journal. You can, like I said, you can write everything you feel. It's one of my favorites. Another thing you can do is writing affirmations or writing yourself positive notes, encouraging quotes. Like the poster at work we always had with the cat hanging up with its little paw saying, hang in there. So it's kind of like that, writing yourself positive notes. You can also write love notes to yourself, like, I love the way you file the reports at the end of the day. You always do such a great job at it. Or I love how you look today. You're really taking care of yourself. So it sounds silly to write love notes to yourself, but it feels really good, especially if you read them back out loud. You can also find guided activities. There's plenty of audio and video tours out there that will guide you through releasing regret. I've used some to release regret. It's been really helpful. There's guidance for grief. Maybe you've lost a pet or a family member or a job. Writing those things down is great. And then, of course, gratitude. There's so many studies on gratitude and how it helps us physically and mentally feel better because it changes the way we're looking. It changes our perspective. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can write in a journal. It doesn't just have to be your feelings. Okay. Another thing that I did that I learned this summer was to create an altar for myself. It's basically just a little box on my dresser, and it has some candles and some crystals and stones, some of my favorite photos, some incense, some affirmations that I wrote to myself, as well as little notes from friends and some artwork from a friend. And a lot of the times when I'm just feeling uninspired or a little sad, I'll go to my altar and just look at everything I have there, and it gives me a boost of energy to be reminded of these things that I love. Lighting the incense gives me aromatherapy, which makes me feel better physically. And then looking at pictures of people I love is wonderful. And then reading their notes and my own notes is very, very affirming. So I really encourage people to make a little altar to themselves, even if it's just a couple pictures and your favorite candle, but have a little space, in your room, or on your desk, wherever you want to put it. It's just to celebrate yourself. So that's a fun one to do. You can put flowers in there, artwork, anything you want. It's fun to have a little altar, a little celebration of yourself.
Well, that's a great idea, because I think a lot of times people don't realize that they can do that because and maybe particularly women, I don't know, we're kind of told, well, you shouldn't really be focused on yourself so much because it's selfish, and you should focus on everyone else instead. That's not really a good idea. Yeah, it's not a good idea, because it's nothing wrong with you celebrating you and lifting yourself up. It really isn't. That's not a problem. But I'm not sure that women usually get that message that that's okay. So that may be a new way of thinking for a lot of people.
Yeah, it teaches you more self-compassion, more self-love for yourself, which is something we all need. Right. I think so. And really, I think that's really important, because a lot of times, we end up trying to look for that outside, and that's not the best way to do it. You have to find that from within, and really reinforce that from within. You can't just look at someone else telling you that you have worth, or value. That's not a good place to be in. And particularly if you're doing something that you're putting yourself out there, not just, career, of course, you're putting yourself out there, but if you're creating something, or you're a business owner, you're a creative person who's putting your work out there, you're going to get a lot of rejection, and people maybe saying things that aren't really encouraging. So for you to be able to keep going, you really have to reaffirm yourself, what you feel, what you believe, because if not, you're not going to make it at all. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Exactly. Self-hatred was definitely a big thing that fed my depression, like just needing to be perfect all the time, not wanting to go outside of the house without a nice outfit and makeup, and always wondering, like, do I look okay? Do I look pretty? I mean, I was surprised when I finally started healing from depression, was how much that had become a focus of my life, like how much I needed outside forces to tell me whether or not I looked good, whether or not I was attractive, whether or not I had worth. And that was quite a revelation for me.
Well, I think that's very much what again, women in particular are told in our culture, that it's very much what other people think of you whether you're putting your business work out there and or you're writing or you're acting or you're creating, and someone comes along with some kind of craziness and you're like, huh? Where's that coming from? What is that about? It's their projection. That's what it is.
Yeah. And they may be suffering from depression as well, or another mental illness, or I mean, and I think that's important, to have compassion for others when they come at you like that. The concept of self-love was, and I had to have someone else bring this to my attention, but it was brought to my attention by Michelle Monero. She's a therapist in San Francisco who wrote this amazing book titled The Self-Love Diet. And it's not a diet, a traditional diet where you cut out this and you cut out that and you do this much exercise. It's a sustainable form of dieting which focuses on self-care and self-love. And this was just amazing to me. Like, this wasn't new information. I mean, it's really not new information to pretty much anybody. But if we don't think about it very often, it becomes something in the background. Like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to love myself, but what does that mean? So it really showed me that we all need more self-compassion. We need more acceptance of ourselves to be imperfect. It can be easier sometimes to be compassionate towards others because we tend to set a rather high bar for our own lives, harshly judging every mistake we make. Yet when we see another person in pain, we aren't necessarily having the same rigid expectations of them, so it can be easier to be compassionate for them. That doesn't always happen, but I've noticed that does happen a lot more than I realize. I feel like I have to do everything right, but someone else is in pain. I'm like, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You can try again. It's okay to fail. But I have a harder time saying that to myself. So a huge turning point for me in healing was to be gentle and patient with myself, which is what love centered on. Love is centered around gentleness and patience. Unfortunately, that is at odds with a society which teaches us we need to be better, to improve, to win, to be the best. But being human means being fallible. We are designed to fail and succeed, not just succeed. I always tell myself, give yourself a break. I tell myself this, give yourself a break, Leah. Even if you fail terribly, it's okay to be imperfect. And one of those actions we can take towards healing is to stop the negative thoughts. It can be easy to say, hey, I'm not going to listen to you over there because you don't know me. That's a great lesson to learn. We all need to learn that. I don't need that hate. But inside, we're judging ourselves. So once we start thinking negatively about ourselves, it's so easy to just get stuck in that train of thought. It just takes us all the way. And so it's vital that we counter those judgmental thoughts with loving thoughts and loving actions. And so that's something I talk about in my book. It's like, you have to stop those thoughts from getting any bigger than they are. Once you start noticing them, be like, nope, I'm not going to go there. This isn't true, and I'm not going to go there.
That's true. And I think a lot of issues come from people's lack of self-love. They're probably themselves not having that, not being brought up that way, being treated a certain way themselves, and then they come into the world and they bring that same behavior with them. And then they're projecting that onto other people. Because all of this behavior doesn't come in a vacuum. It comes usually because that person is bringing something that then has led to them being broken in some way. And then they're bringing that and throwing that out there to others because that's all they know. And if in the culture, we kind of reward people who are very aggressive and angry and kind of think that's wonderful, then you can't be surprised when that kind of behavior is encouraged. And I'll say when I was working in corporate, I was one of those people who was passive aggressive and talking about my manager and not taking action because I didn't know what to do. So a lot of my not knowing what to do and feeling depressed about it took the form of, watching a lot of reality TV and kind of enjoying when people were aggressive and obnoxious because that was a part of me. They was feeding something in me that didn't know what to do. So I'm not taking action in my life, but I'm watching someone act a fool on TV and somehow I'm feeling something from that. But then when I stopped working corporate and I, went on my own and kind of worked at changing my own attitude, that stuff now, I don't even look at it. It means nothing to me. I don't get anything from it. It's not even entertaining. because now I don't need that. I don't need to see that as a way to express something in me that's not being expressed. I'm not saying I'm above it. I'm just saying I work through it.
That's a wonderful point. One of the things I had to do when I was healing from depression was to stop my addiction to watching dramas. Because I had so much internal turmoil. It was, I could watch it on TV. I was like, okay, I'm not alone. Everyone has this drama. But it really, it just made me feel more depressed. So there were a lot of shows that I just had to stop watching because I realized after the end of the show, I just felt worse. So it's an internal thing. I think that's a wonderful point you brought up. That we really do have to be like, wait, why are we attracted to this? Why is this something we want in our life if we don't really want it?
Exactly. I think that's something we don't always ask ourselves. And I'll say again, I don't think the culture supports a lot of introspection, or makes fun of it, or dismisses it. But it's important because it's going to make you a healthier person and a happier person. And so it does take work to do, but maybe just looking within has a lot to do with it, because I often have depressions in the winter when there's not as much sunshine and there's no color, because here in New Jersey, the leaves fall off and the trees, and it's bleak at times, and it snows sometimes, and everything's covered in white and gray. There's no color, and it affected me for years before I knew what was going on. And then I was like, oh, so this, these cycles that are going on. So, I got light bulbs of a certain, light that it gives, and I turn those on, particularly during the winter, and I found exercise helps a lot. It really helps a lot to restore my equilibrium. But that was something I was going on for years that I didn't even know about. Now people talk about that seasonal affective disorder thing, but before no one talked about that. They didn't say that it existed, and they call it disorder. I don't think it's a disorder necessarily. You're sensitive. And I'm sure there's a good reason for that. Maybe we don't know what it is. Who knows? Maybe that sensitivity is what helps you be creative or helps you do other things. It's not just, I don't look at it as disorder, I'm sorry. But it does affect, my mood does affect how I feel about things, and I'm aware of it now. So I try my best to stay as aware as possible, That's the best I can do. I do the best I can with it, but I'm aware that it happens. Yeah. I'm aware that it happens. So that's something. Nothing else.
Paying attention to yourself. And it is. It's depression is, and that's what I learned in training, is depression is a natural reaction. It's not that you're broken or something wrong with you. Your brain is reacting to something that's happening to you. So whether it's a seasonal affective disorder, whether it's grief, whether it's trauma or violence, depression happens for a reason. It is a natural reaction. It's not a fluke. It's not something that shouldn't have happened. It's literally your brain being like, I don't know how to handle this. What am I going to do?
Yeah, that's a good thing to mention. So people realize that, and they don't feel somehow that they're terrible people because they're going through this. Yeah, that's a good thing to mention. So we want to let people know where they can find out about your book and find it, and where they can find more about you.
Well, my book is available on Amazon, and then I have a website. It's called Empower You, but it's spelled with an I because my theme is individual empowerment. So it's IMPOWER, empoweryou.org. I've been blogging on there and adding my art to it for a while. So I have a lot of free resources on there as well. A lot of information that people are welcome to use and share. So Amazon and Empower You are the places where I am. I'm also on Twitter, the same username, and Facebook. I really like Twitter. Twitter's a fun place to write. I found it to be a great outlet for depression. I'll just share my thoughts, how I'm feeling about depression, and then just add the hashtag depression. And I get a lot of feedback, a lot of positive support on Twitter. So that's fun.
That's good. That's very positive to hear. I tend to like Twitter a little better because people have to write very short.
Yeah.
You know,
you choose what you want to say a little better. You know, it's not, you get rid of all the mumbo jumbo, and you have to be very concise. So I like that too.
Exactly. I think that's a good way to do it. You know, so each platform has its own little style to it. So, you know, Lee, what would you say are ways that we can help others to heal from depression?
Yeah, so learning about how depression manifests and be aware of warning signs. Like I said, depression is a natural reaction. So it's your brain, your body saying, oh, something's wrong. And we can start talking about it more. We can stop the stigma of it being weak or being, you know, overwhelming. People aren't weak when they're depressed. They're ill. It is a certifiable mental illness. The depression is just like if you had a broken bone. You would treat it gently. You would help your friend, you know, offer to drive them places instead of making them walk on crutches for 6 miles. Depression is similar to that. You know, just because you can't see the scars doesn't mean the pain isn't there. It doesn't mean it's intense. So you can become certified in mental health first aid. That's another option. I took the class through Mental Health America, and they offer free classes throughout the U.S. It's kind of an intense one-day class, but very eye-opening. You learn a lot, and you get to do a little role-playing, so it's good practice. And then the most important lesson is listening. When I started seeking help, people were listening to me. They actually listened. I said, I need help. I don't know what's going on. I can't handle anything anymore. I don't know what's going on. Can you help me? And people actually listened. And we all need to be heard. That's a normal human need. When we're shut down, people tell us, you know, oh, you'll get over it, or just, you know, don't worry about it. Just, you know, smile and move on. When we're shut down and silenced like that, it can just increase our depression. We'll just learn like I did. We'll learn to just smile and pretend like everything's okay, but on the inside, we're just rolling in despair. Mm-hmm. So listening to people and actually listening to what they're saying, holding space, which just means being there for someone and saying, hey, if you need space to talk, to listen, if you need someone to go with you to the doctor, I'm here for you. And then encouraging to be transparent with our feelings. You know, through ourselves at work, I've learned to be more transparent, like telling my supervisor, well, I'm doing okay, but I'm not feeling very good today. I'm feeling a little bummed out because it's playing over on the news, or I'm having a family issue that's causing a little bit of stress. And surprisingly, my supervisor is very, well, I shouldn't say surprising. She's a wonderful person, but to me, I was surprised when she was like, oh, well, you know, if you need anything, let me know. If you want to come sit in my office, if you need to take a break, you know, just do what you need to do. So listening and being transparent with how we feel. That is the best way to help someone with depression. And then, like I said, learning about how it manifests. So if you're able to take a class or a certification or just join a support group.
Mm-hmm. Those are all great ways to help people, I think, and also to help yourself, you know, through things. I think it's important that, you know, if you take in those classes and things like that, you know, you never know how you're learning something that can help someone else. Mm-hmm. And also helping yourself at the same time. So.
And I've been able to use what I learned in training. They teach you like the right questions to ask, and telling people, you know, can I help you? Well, I can't help you with that. Is there something else I can help you with? Kind of leading people to, you want to help people, but you also want to help them empower themselves. So, like I said, listening, and asking the right questions. So yeah, the class was just amazing. I mean, I'm not a therapist. I know some therapists who took the class and they're like, oh, well, I already knew most of the stuff. But for those of us who aren't therapists, who just want to be able to help, I found it to be such a wonderful resource. And then I actually was able to use it with a relative who's very depressed. And it's been so much easier helping this person now after the class than before when I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's great, you know, because I think the average person really doesn't know what to do, because we just aren't taught those things at all. So just to have that knowledge is really priceless, because you never know what people are going through, because it's more of a stereotype, I think, that people who are depressed are just sitting around looking sad. You could be depressed and putting on a very happy face, or just going through it and not, people dealing with you may not even know what you're holding in. They may have no clue at all what you're going through. So it's not always necessarily that the person's going to be sitting there looking sad. They could, there could be little tells there, but it may not necessarily be the case. And later people go through things and maybe go through physical challenges and then not really understanding how many years of going through a certain way of thinking and being has led to that. But you didn't realize at the time because maybe you just didn't know there was a better way to feel.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I grew up with family members who were depressed, so there was definitely a part of me that thought, okay, I mean, obviously I'm depressed, but this is just the way it is. Like,
right.
I'm broken. This is just going to be the rest of my life. I'm just going to have to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize, like, it was an actual thing, and that actually, oh no, this is not normal. This is not how I have to be.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it's good for people to realize that there is hope for them to be better, feel better, and get through these things. Rather than just to be lost in it and just not see a way out and just be crushed under by it. So I think this is really an excellent message, Lee, and very, very timely. So we're coming to the end of the program, but, do you have any final thoughts about what we've been talking about?
I think just want to reiterate the fact that depression is a natural reaction that someone's having or that you're having. But if you want help, you have to, if you want to get help, get better, you have to actually insist on yourself doing it. You have to take action. So you can't just say, well, I want help, but I'm not going to do anything. You have to go help. You have to ask for help, or you have to start reading the book. You have to take a class. You just have to take that one baby step. It can be a tiny little step. It doesn't have to be big. Take one step, realize that you have an illness, just like a broken bone that needs to be healed. And just go for it.
That's a good way to look at it, I think. And I really hope that people will take all that in if they're feeling like they're going through something and know that there is hope to come through that and to feel better. So Lee, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you so much for writing that book, and thank you for sharing everything here on the program.
Well, thank you for having me, Deb. I was a little nervous, but I did enjoy the talk, and thank you for sharing your own experiences and joining the conversation. That always makes it a little bit easier when other people can kind of understand what depression is like.
Yes. Well, you're welcome. I totally get it, and I'm sure a lot of people listening will as well understand it, or even know someone who's going through something and realize that they can now lend a hand to the people in their lives as well. So I think it's always good for us all to learn these things. And so everyone, I know you enjoyed this show. You learned a lot. Please get Lee's book and check out her blog and check her out on social media. We're going to have those links, of course, in the show notes on the blog. And so once again, it's Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm really glad you could join me again. See you again next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on Facebook.com/Women Entrepreneurs and on the website, WomenEntrepreneurSecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.